Hello everybody, thank you for coming back to the channel and welcome to this new chapter in the building and adapting to RC of the Antonov, we have it over here, Antonov 2, the Towner design. So after building the top part of the fuselage and the canopy cockpit battery hatch all in one, hopefully it'll fit. Now what I want to do, I want to figure out how to mount the engine. Now the plan is made for a 1cc motor, and if you look here at the left side, here we have an engine bearer made out of ply. I think it's a 3/16 or something like that, ply that actually goes stuck to the underside of the nose part of these basic stringers. Now this, I believe, is for the engines, the internal combustion engine. They're probably horizontally mounted. With the electric motor that I'm using, I have to figure out somehow how to make a vertical mount. So I probably won't make this. I might make something equivalent at some point, maybe for strengthening of the nose part, which is also the one that will probably take most of the hits. But I have to figure out how to mount the motor in this kind of position with the cables down. I don't know if you can see it. You can't see it actually. Let me point you down a little bit. There, a bit further down. So somehow I have to mount it somewhere here. And for this, what I intend to do is to cut out a circle out of plywood, and I've already got it prepared here. I've come up with a diameter, drawing it on plywood. This is the center, not that. And then see how I can mount the motor on this, and then figure out also how I can put this and somehow match it up at about this height. Have to figure it out to the basic stringers. So that is going to be then the challenge for now. After that, probably some reinforcements on the horizontal plane. I've got to figure out also how I'm going to put the cables that will go backwards. I've also got a connector here missing, so I've got to find that one and put it back on, and then also do the engine cowling. Maybe the top part, I might do it in 2 to 4 parts, I'm not sure. So maybe do the top part of the engine cowling, and then like this gradually already start to get the structure of the nose part. Another piece that has to be done is, let's see if you can see it over here on the left. You can't see it over here on the left. There's like a ring, a wooden ring that actually closes the engine cowling all around. So that I'll do out of like 10mm balsa. I think I've also got it drawn out. Let's see if I don't knock anything over. So I've already done the circle for that one. I'll cut this out, then bring it to shape, also cut out the middle part, and that will give it some shape. More shape, I think, than anything else. Maybe also some place actually where to then stick the cowling on. So that's also going to be part. I don't think I'll make it removable. Maybe I should, I don't know, I have to think about it, because sometimes it's good maybe to get to the engine, but maybe not. I'll just maybe make it fixed, that it just sits there. The engine is built in, and unless it breaks and crashes miserably, then I wouldn't be having access to the engine once it's in place. In any case, a lot of little variations to do, a lot of adaptations to do, and a lot of cutting and carving and things like that. So I'll get on with it, and I'll let you know when I have some progress. And as usual, a little bit of progress. Let me show you what I've done. I've done the engine mount plate. It's round and I've been drilling out holes. I've already tried it and managed to put some screws through and some nuts on the other side. So this holds, I think, quite stiff, which is good. I was thinking of maybe making another layer, but maybe I'll just leave it like that. I've also made a hole here to put the 3 cables through. Not as tidy as I would like it to be, but I think it's good enough. And then the next challenge is to how to build this up, or how to mount it that it actually stays upright and has enough strength, right? So what I did, I traced out the shape of the original engine mount, which is supposed to be on 3mm ply. I don't have 3mm ply, I just have 1mm ply, and I've started to prepare it. I've trimmed it off from the front. I'm cutting this shape out, and the process here is that I take the hand drill, so kind of the hand drill that I have, I drill holes. I probably drill holes on the other side also, and then at some point hopefully then break it off and be able to break it off. All the other bits I follow the tip from cliff, which is to use scissors, which are used basically only for that because they're ruined for everything else. And then the idea is to somehow mount this like this somehow. Now to do that I still have to make some shapes in there. I'm thinking maybe not to go to 3mm, but maybe make another one so that it's 2mm and that it's nice and stiff. And then to mount it, what I'm thinking, how is it going to be? It's got this gap because the center line is here, so it's probably going to be somewhere like this. To mount it I'll probably put maybe some blocks of balsa, some square blocks, to make sure that it's perpendicular to itself. And then I have to think up some kind of brackets. Maybe some metal brackets, maybe out of a can or something. Some metal brackets that it holds this piece to this piece, because this is all the power, let's say the thrust power of the motor is going to go onto this, and then all this then needs to be glued very carefully and very sturdily then to the basic stringers, and somehow distribute the energy along that, because this is going to be the part that's going to make the pulling, but also the crashing probably, right? So if there's a hit on the propeller, it's going to hit on this. If it noses over, it's going to hit on this. So I'm thinking I'll make another 1mm ply model of this and glue them together, and then figure out how to put these together. And then the motor will sit up here in front, cables underneath, and in the under part I need to put probably there the ESC. I'll probably somehow stick it here or somehow like fix it there somehow. And then on the upper part I'm thinking of putting the receiver, and then the battery will come in here, because this is where actually the battery hatch will somehow match up somewhere here. So that is the plan. So it's a bit of a different material, of course. Ply is much harder to work with, but yeah, let's see how it comes along. And using those metal brackets that I'm not sure where I'll get from is also going to be a bit of a challenge. And then I'll probably screw them, use some glue, maybe some super glue, some CA somehow to fix it in place, that this is as perpendicular and as sturdy as I can get it to be. And this is where I might be starting to over-engineer things, which is part of the fun. So let's see what I have. I have a lot of different pieces. So this I showed you already. This is the piece where the engine will actually be screwed onto. And as I mentioned, now the challenge is to get this in a perfectly perpendicular way to what's going to hold it onto the fuselage, right? So I've done this. I've come up with another way of cutting this out, which is using a normal drawing pin kind of, and hammering it through, making it very close, and then I can actually break it through. So I don't know if it's shorter or longer than using the drill, but it also works using the hammer. So I suppose the neighbors aren't happy about it. In any case, so now I have to find a way of putting this together, and what I've done so far, I've cut out some blocks of 9mm balsa, and one will go glue on here basically somehow, and the other one, I've got another one, will glue here at the bottom. And then going to have to carve out so that I have enough space for the screws, and also for this rear axle of the motor, for which I have this little gap, but I don't have it on these blocks. So the next step is actually to glue these blocks here as centered as possible, maybe carve out some grooves for the axle, and once that is done, then slide this in, poof, and then work on those metal braces that I'm thinking of doing also. So yeah, that's probably being over-engineered. What I've also done here, using the same drawing pin method and the hammer, I don't know if you can see it, I've got here some holes, and the idea is that then I'll take some small screws. I've got a set of small screws, I've used them before. I know some of you say don't put metal on models because it's heavy, but my idea is then I have to pick up the size of the screw and then actually put the screw in through the plywood and make it go into the balsa here onto the basic stringer, and like that, together with glue of course, and then have it as fixed as possible, right? Glue might be enough actually, but then with a screw I'll have the feeling at least that it's that is very sturdy. And I'm not afraid at the moment of putting weight on in the front, because typically these things are tail heavy, and I think it'll be okay. Then with the battery I'll have to do the center of gravity. So those are the next steps: glue things, assemble, and then once that is ready, put the engine on and see how it's going to go, and then take the fuselage of the plane and see how that assembles on, and actually maybe even put it on already, and then it'll be about building the lower part of the fuselage. So having fun over engineering things, why not? So here I am telling you a bit of the story of my life. What I've done just now, I've put in this little triangular piece, because I didn't put it in before I painted it. So I painted a piece of wood and then I cut it and I put it in, but anyhow, that's a small detail. And then I've been preparing the engine cowling, and I managed to glue it. We're holding it with a rubber band, so a long process. The wood I was wetting it, and with rubber bands putting it around a pot. I think this my minium pot was similar in diameter, so I was using that, and as it's 1mm actually it bends quite well. And then I managed to glue it. Now what I did realize also is that all that I was saying about having an angle and all that stuff, I kind of gave up on it, because it was, how to say it, it was too difficult, and I was missing like 1mm and things like that. But then what actually today I was out on an airfield, and in I see flying one of these Antonovs with a big red cowling. The whole thing was red, and I was looking at it, and actually it does have a little bit of that angle, not much, but a little bit of that angle it does have it, right? So I said I don't want to give up on it yet. So what I'm doing now, I'm trimming. I was going to trim this down because it's too long. Then I decided I'm going to try to make the cowl flaps out of those. Somehow it just came the idea to mind. I have tried cowl flaps in the past, but they always fall off with paper. So I'm going to try to do cowl flaps with this. So I split them here, and then hopefully I can just bend them up a little bit and then secure them with a spot of glue. And then to make this a little bit, that it does have a bit of that angle, I'm going to try to open it up and try to wedge in there like 1mm slivers of wood. Can't find now any at hand, but if I find some small sliver, a little wedge, somehow this is a wedge, and then try to slide this in, and like that, hopefully, I don't know if you can see it, you can't, try to get that effect. So next point is going to be to design these kind of slivers of wood, probably 1mm at the top, maybe, I don't know if 2 would fit, to try to get that effect indeed of the cowling that is bigger diameter at the back than at the front. So anyhow, I'm trying, so experimenting. Now what I'm doing with this, I've got a small saw. I'm sawing this line, I'm scoring this line. It's 1mm thick, so I'm going to go halfway, so 0.5 millimeter. This one I'm still doing it, and then I cut here the flaps, the cowl flaps, and hopefully it somehow stays. So anyhow, long story short, just playing around, wasting a bit of time and trying to make things look nice, even if I don't always manage. Anyhow, let's see how this one comes out, and I'll show it to you. If it looks good, I'll be proud of it. If not, I'll be proud of it also. And I'm going to call an end to this video. So this is what it somehow is starting to look like. Canopy and hatch, so I can come off. This is the engine cowling that I did correct a little bit. I put in those slivers of wood. I still have to maybe clean it up a little bit. So and paint it and cut these things off. The tabs are looking quite good. I've done one because it was broken, so I wanted to fix it. Another one also was a little bit broken, so I did it. I'll have to do the same with all of them. And I've also tried to put in the engine mount. And I think this also, now I had to do some adjustments, some sanding down, and this also comes in here quite okay. So it'll stick out like this, and this, let's see if I don't break it now, then this squeezes in somehow like this. I have to figure it out. I have to probably put it onto the basic stringers and then into the cowling. And then the canopy on top as was there before, right? So this was still going a little bit more. It should fit once I have it there complete. And what I have to figure out is then how to fix the cowling to to the structure itself, maybe with some small screws. I might putting a little bit of wood there so that the screws can go into, and maybe make small holes that is somehow fixed, and maybe at the same time even removable if needed. But in overall, I think the structure is there. Let me take it out gradually, and then next steps will be to do the underside, which will also be a big thing in itself. In any case, as always, thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time.